What the fuck are map timings? Map timings in CSGO is a set amount of time it takes for a player to get from one position to another. And in CSGO, timing is very important. There's timing to do with grenades and smokes bouncing and blooming, but specifically with map timings, we're trying to look at how long it takes for a terrorist or counter-terrorist to get from a specific starting point to another starting point, to an end point rather. So counter-terrorist getting from CT spawn to long, or terrorist getting from T spawn to long, is something that we'll want to look at. So for map timings, you could do it like the old-fashioned way, which is getting into a server, putting on some freeze time, getting your spawn by restarting the game, finding out like the best spawn that you have and the worst spawn, and then physically running over to the location. But with CSGO, you can actually, with the colors down here in the map overview, you can hold shift and you can draw a line to see how long it takes to get from one location to the other. And it's going to give you a rough estimate. It's not going to be like 100%. It's going to be, you know, roughly this amount of time. So using this tool, we can go into maps and find out how long does it take for you to travel to a certain location. And that's cool because you'll know like when to expect an enemy to be popping up on your screen, but it also tells you what time you should be flashing at as a counter-terrorist, as a terrorist. It lets you know like what time you should be looking for aggressive plays as a terrorist or as a counter-terrorist. Whatever you do, knowing the map timings and knowing when an enemy can be in a certain location is very crucial. It allows you to do things like rotate with your knife out. If you know that there can't be an enemy nearby, you can get a quicker rotation by rotating with a knife out. But if you don't know the rotations, then maybe you're a little cautious, you're running with an AK out, and it now takes you 2 additional seconds to get to whatever location you're going to assist your teammates. So map timings are important to know, and it'll write itself into your brain over time, so you don't have to like think like, oh, it's 1 minute 38, the counter-terrorist can be here. You don't think about it and process it that way. You just know by feel where the enemies can be, and that just is a part of game sense. So I'm going to go over a few different examples of knowing important map timings on Dust 2, which you should really be taking into account when you approach this map, and really figure out like what timings everything can happen at, and know what time you should be flashing at and smoking at and peeking at, and you should really know all this just in general. So starting with terrorists, let's say the most common thing you'll see or hear is you have a long spawn, rush long. Well, okay, a long spawn just means that in terrorist spawn, I'm spawning closer towards long. And generally that means you're on the ramp in about this location here. You don't want to be up here on the ramp, or you don't want to be towards B. You want to be somewhere on this ramp. And what that means is you have the long spawn and you're going to run towards long doors and you're going to peek out. So you need to know the timings of when you're going to meet up with the enemy, like where's the enemy going to be at the same time that you get to this position here. Where can the enemy be? Additionally, it's not just where can they be, it's what time should you flash out. So if you're approaching long, do you flash early? Do you flash when you get to this position here? Or do you wait and you flash a little bit later, like when you're about to get out the doors? This is all map timings and understanding the map timings. So if I bring up the radar, I'm going to know if I draw on this map that if I run this direct route here, it's going to take about 8 seconds for me as a terrorist with a nice long spawn to get to the doors. As a counter-terrorist to run up that way, it's going to take me about 7 seconds to get to the corner. So I know as a terrorist, if I'm attacking this, I know that if the counter-terrorist has the best spawn, they could possibly get into the pit before I see them. But additionally, 7 seconds is when they will get to the corner and they'll be peeking me. So if I'm coming to the doors here and a counter-terrorist is going to be peeking me from this position here, they'll get to this position at 7 seconds, which is a second before I make it to this position. So I need a flash that will affect them just before I peek out. So at 7 seconds, they need to be blind. So at 6 seconds, I need to release the flash. So doing the math in my head, let's say it's a standard round time of 1:45 on the clock. I'll subtract 7 seconds from that since I'm rushing it. 145 minus 7 is 138. So at 138 on the clock is when the counter-terrorist can be in this position here. That's when he needs to be blind. So the flash needs to be actually thrown at minute 39 or minute 40 so that it can travel over this wall and explode where it will affect them as they're coming to peek this corner. You don't want to flash too early because the counter terrorists are going to be still like back here when you're throwing your initial flashes, unless they're very deep flashes. So if I'm a terrorist and I'm rushing long, I'm just going to become alive for this. I'm going to want to know all these timings, and I'm going to want to know when I have to flash and when I should expect an enemy to be in a certain location. So with my trusty AK, I'm going to pretend I have a long spawn, and I'm going to move at 45, okay? I'm going to wait an additional 5 seconds just so I can tell you the timings. So the round starts, I'm running over towards long. I'm counting the clock. Flash now. I can peek this. So the flash needs to come for me to be able to come and peek this right after it pops, just so that I know that any counter terrorists who are on this corner, they'll either have to turn around and then re-peek when I'm already at the doors, or they'll just sit at the doors and they'll get blind from the flash, and then I'll be able to come out and kill them. So this flash, although the counter terrorists can see it coming over, it'll take them off the corner. Well, that doesn't help that much if they see it coming over and they go like this, they hide and they peek out and kill me. So what can I do to help myself out there? Well, as the counter terrorists are running up from here, they'll get to this position at what time? If I want to get a flash that will affect them as they're running up this entire length from up here all the way back to where I'm standing currently, all the way up until this point, I want to find out what time will the counter terrorists be at this point here, so I can get a flash that will land deep enough that will affect them. So if I'm coming up as a terrorist, I can throw deep flashes that will affect the counter terrorists who are coming up the wall here, because the flash will actually go deep enough and affect anyone who's running up this way. And if they're flashed over here and they can't see anything, they're going to have to start running up with their head in the wall. And then if I keep throwing flashes at them, they're going to keep getting blind. So I need to find out what time the counter terrorists are running up this wall. So again, if I go back to spec, if I'm a counter terrorist, I'm running to this point here, it's going to take 4 seconds. So between here and here, it's going to take 3 seconds. So 4 seconds into the round is when I should do a deep flash, and 7 seconds, which is the 4 plus 3, is when I'm going to want to do the shallower flashes to take any counter terrorists off this angle. So again, 4 seconds into the round, I throw the deep flashes that will affect anyone up here, and 7 seconds into the round, I'll throw the shallower flashes which will affect anyone over here. That's what I need to understand about map timings on Dust 2 in specific, at long in specific. Now this is just like one of the different types of map timings that you need to understand. Like this will help you as a terrorist for rush, and it'll help you as a counter terrorist to know what to expect from a rush and where the terrorists can be at certain points. Can you make it across to the pit? Because I see a lot of the time counter terrorists are afraid to cross to the pit because they're afraid of getting killed. But the counter terrorist gets to this point before the terrorist gets to this point, which means that you, if you run with your knife out, you should be able to make it to the pit before the terrorists are able to come out and actually kill you. So that's a very important bit of information. I see loads of times that counter terrorists are afraid to take over long because they're afraid of dying, when you should be able to just smoke or flash at this cross right here to delay the terrorists just even 1 second so that you can cross safely into the pit. Now you have full long control, and you can play a nice bait crossfire and crossfire setup, any sort of setup that you want once you have pit control when you've established long control. Other ways that you can take a look at map timings on this map are, let's talk about a cat boost, for example. So if I want to boost up short as a CT, I'm going to want to jump up, and I'm going to boost someone up, and they're going to come onto cat, and they're going to push off of cat, and they're going to get to certain locations. So here, it would take me about 9 seconds roughly in the round, at best, to get to this position if I'm boosting on cat. It's something that you can't really draw on the overview, the map overview. So it's something that you'll actually physically have to get in game and go over yourself. So again, if you execute that strat config, and if you haven't seen that, I made a video on that, so you can check that video out. What you'll want to do is you'll want to add some freeze time. So adding 2 seconds of freeze time is good. And then you'll just want to restart game 1. When it restarts the game, Okay, let's use this spawn for example, and let's run straight out of spawn and get to the boost. Someone will boost me, I'll get up, and I'll start running to the corner. 10 seconds I get here, 12 seconds. So between 10 and 12 seconds, depending on how fast I do it, I will be able to push off of cat into this position here. Between 8 and 10 seconds, I'll be able to get to this position here. So that's if I'm boosting up as a counter-terrorist. This is good information for me to have as a terrorist, because I know that if I'm rotating around here as a terrorist and I want to get to green box, for example, I know that I don't have to have my gun out until 10 seconds into the round. So if I'm, let's say, restarting the game and I want to play as a terrorist, I'm going to restart the game 1. This isn't good spawn. I'm not going to push up suicide. This is a good spawn though. I can push up suicide here. So I'm going to run up suicide towards cat and figure out what timing I can get to the corner at the same time as the counter terrorist. So this is 10 seconds. So 8 seconds I get here and 10 seconds I get here. Remember, we were talking about counter terrorists. They get 8 seconds here and then 10 seconds, 10 to 12 seconds they'll get to this point. So as a terrorist, I'll actually get up cat and I'll be at this position 8 seconds in when the counter terrorist is about here. So I'll want a flash that's gonna be affecting this area when I'm turning the corner if I'm anticipating a cat rush or a boost cat. Additionally, if I just sit here, I can anticipate that a cat push is gonna come at a certain time, or I can just come into this position here or this position on Xbox anticipating a cat push at a certain amount of time. If there's no push in that timing, then I know it's relatively safe until there's going to be a slow cat play. So a slow cat play, if a counter terrorist just spawns and runs all the way over to cat, what time are they going to be able to push off cat at? Well, we'll see how much time we save by doing a fast cat. Running out of spawn, and then getting onto cat, I'll do it up this way, which is on the box, and running up the short way off the wall. 10 seconds I'll get behind the brick. 13 seconds I'll get to this corner. And then an additional 2 seconds to get me to this corner. Okay? I'll do it one more time, and I'll do it with the normal long way around cat. So I'll actually run up the ramp. I'll jump up this way. 10 seconds I get here. So it saves me an extra second. 13 seconds there. And 15 seconds here. So it'll save me an additional second by jumping up this box and coming up this rail. If I want to come over to cat, it's going to take me about 10 seconds to get behind the brick. And again, as a terrorist, if I'm running fast cat, it takes me how long to get here? 8 seconds, 10 seconds. So I'll see a counter terrorist behind the bricks here if they've gone the long way, if I'm doing a fast cat as a terrorist running through suicide. So when I'm coming up as a terrorist, I need to know what I need to flash. Well, I know that if I'm coming up cat, I'm going to want to do this pre-flash because I'm going to be getting to this corner at the same time as the counter terrorist is turning that corner. So when I turn my corner, I want a flash to just be going off. So this is a good flash to do, and now I can be able to, I can come around the corner and I can peek. And this flash is going to get anyone who's up here and anyone who is back here. So that flash, I know with the timing that I should be blinding anybody in those positions. If I'm running fast cat, I need to be throwing this flash as soon as possible so I can turn the corner and make this play as quickly as possible. That's something that I figure out by going to his server, spawning, and running from the position in spawn, and I'll try it with different spawn points. So in counter terror spawn, you'll spawn closer to B and closer to A. So closer to B spawn would be here, closer to A would be here. Well, I need to test it by running from this position here in spawn closer to B towards long A and towards cat and fast cat, and I need to test it again with the long spawn, and I need to test running to B the same way. So I use the B spawn to run to B, and I use the long spawn to run to B, and I find out what timings it takes for me to get from spawn into those positions, and at that same amount of time that it takes me to get into those positions. So if I'm a counter terrorist and I'm running to long, it takes me 7 seconds to get here. I'll find out as a terrorist how long does it take, so how far can I go at 7 seconds. Well, at 7 seconds I'll probably be around here. So I know that as a counter terrorist, I should be able to come out and jump across to the pit before the terrorist gets out. Now I can help myself getting into the pit by having a teammate flash at a certain time, so just before I'm about to peek the corner, I can have someone throw a pop flash for me. Or another thing I can do is I can throw a smoke for myself as I'm coming up, so that I can actually safely cross into the pit, because now the terrorists don't have to just get here, they have to actually come out through the doors if they want to kill me, and this exposes themselves. So knowing the map timings is very important for actually knowing when you have to throw smokes, when you have to throw flashes, when you can anticipate the enemy to be in a certain location. That's why it's very important to understand map timings and to know all the map timings and all the specific maps. Anyways, hope this little definition helped. Until next time.